Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Friends with Fertility. Today we have Elle Margetson. She is a grief therapist, a lost mom, a rainbow mom, and the creator of the Lost Mom Method. After losing her triplets in 2021, Elle turned to her own heartbreak and to a mission to support other moms navigating baby loss, pregnancy after loss, and the complex layers of grief that follow. She combines her unique approach, Superconscious Grief Therapy, with lived experience to help women release guilt, calm overwhelm, and to start to feel like themselves again. With over 120 plus lost moms supported, Elle is deeply committed to breaking the silence around baby loss and showing that healing is possible without ever forgetting the babies we carry in our hearts. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here to talk about this beautiful yet sensitive subject.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Take us back to your situation and what were you doing prior to 2021?
So my partner and I met in 2017 and we knew pretty early on that we wanted to start a family. I was 24 at the time, so it wasn't really on my mind too much, but he's a little older than me and he very much knew he wanted children when he met the right person. It was just kind of that situation when you know. So we decided a couple of years in that we were going to start to try. And it took us a couple of years to figure out that I always knew that I had PCOS, but didn't know how bad it was. And it took us quite a while to realize that it wasn't happening on its own. So we kind of explored options of what we needed to do. And I knew that the issue was with me and that I wasn't ovulating. So it wasn't going to happen on our own.
Now, had you been tracking to know you weren't ovulating, or how were you knowing that you weren't ovulating?
Yeah.
Just for people who are listening.
Yeah, of course. So I have ADHD, so when I put my mind to something, it very much becomes the full focus of my attention. So I was meticulously tracking everything for almost 2 years, and we just weren't getting pregnant. It just wasn't. I could see every cycle that my ovulation tests were never quite getting where they needed to be, and I'd have like several peaks in a month, and it just wouldn't happen. So we kind of knew that we needed to go get some help at that point.
Mm-hmm. And were you a practicing therapist at that time?
No, I wasn't. So before this, I had all my qualifications. So I did my psychology degree and a few extra bits and pieces. Gosh, 10 years ago now. And at that time, I was actually working at an accountancy firm just because it was a steady job, it paid the bills, and I enjoyed it. We just brought our first home together in the midst of this kind of fertility issue. And everybody kept saying to us, well, new house, new baby, you never know, it might happen. And it just didn't happen. And every month was kind of that little bit of heartbreak of seeing a negative test.
And so then you guys went down the road of fertility treatment, or what happened next?
Yeah, so in the UK, we're very lucky in some ways that we have the NHS. And we were lucky that I say lucky, I went to my doctor and was kind of brushed off and just told, I'll keep trying, it'll happen, you're young. It wasn't until I requested an appointment with a female doctor and she was like, nope, this is not okay, we're not going to do this. And bless her heart, she wrote to my primary doctor and said, this isn't okay, we need to do tests. So she sent us to our local hospital and to the gynae department there, and we saw a consultant with basically an OBGYN, and he just took everything that I was saying and actually heard me and believed me and didn't even wait for the test to come back to confirm that I had PCOS, just said, yeah, it sounds like it. We're going to give you letrozole We're going to see how you go for 4 cycles, and we'll go from there. So yeah, that was kind of it. We were sent away with our medication and told to just take the medication, see what happens. And we were one of those couples that we were really, really fortunate that we got pregnant the first cycle.
The first
But
medicated
yeah,
cycle on letrozole.
yes, yeah, the first one that we did.
Is that the cycle that you got pregnant with triplets?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So I know a lot of people, one of my best friends, in fact, got pregnant with twins on Clomid. And so a lot of people get nervous, right? About like, oh my gosh, if I do this, that means I'm going to have multiples or whatnot. That's still pretty rare for people to get pregnant with multiples on just a regular medicated cycle with letrozole and Clomid. So I just want to state that that's pretty unusual. So when you found out that you were pregnant with triplets, how did you feel about that?
It was an interesting journey to find out that we were, because obviously the medication, like you said, it's not a thing that's a regularly occurring thing. Our consultant told us we had less than a 0.5% chance of falling pregnant with multiples. Even with my partner is a twin, so even with my fiance being a twin, it normally follows the maternal side, so we weren't too worried. I'd never been pregnant before this point, and I started to show at 7 weeks. And I spoke to my mom, like we all do. We call our moms. I was like, "Is this normal?" And she was like, "I don't know. Like maybe you're just one of them women that show really early." So we booked a private scan because I was like, "I don't think this is normal." And as soon as we got in there, we saw two right away. So my fiance was jumping for joy. He was like, "Oh, I'm so happy that we get to have twins. We get to have the experience that I had as a kid." And everything went really quiet. And that's when my heart kind of got a bit, oh, okay, is this where we're going to run into some trouble? And the tech looked at me and she just said, "It's okay, everything looks good. I'm just looking into something because there's something I'm not sure about." And she was really coy about what was going on. I don't think she wanted to worry us. And she's like, "I'm just going to go and grab the other tech." And she ran out the door and came back. And the other lady came in. And I could see like the surprise on her face. And they both just looked at me and was like, there's three, there's not two. There's another, the one was hiding behind the other two." And our jaws hit the floor and we were just like,
That's a whole nother situation, right?
how are we going to do this? Like instant family overnight. We were so pleased, but so terrified at the same time. And it probably took a good 2 weeks for that news to kind of settle in. And then it was kind of like oh, we really need to get moving with things, because we have to get three of everything. So we started settling into that idea of being triplet parents pretty quickly.
And so from that 7 week scan, how did it progress from there?
After the 7 week scan that was private, they told me to call because we everything goes to community midwives here. So they told me to call the midwives and let them know that not only was I pregnant, but I was having triplets, and it would automatically be classed as a high risk pregnancy. So I let them know. They referred me to a hospital of our choice, and we went for our first scan and appointment with our consultant at 10 weeks.
From that 7 to 10 weeks, you had nobody looking at anything. It was just
No. Over here, it's not uncommon to do that. It's normally the process is you kind of, they call it booking in your pregnancy to let them know that you're pregnant, and then you don't see anybody until 12 weeks. You have a 12 week scan, and I think you only have like one or two more. You have a 20 week and maybe a
right,
34 week.
especially with somebody who's younger, right? Like you haven't really gone through an IVF process. You were just on, not just, but you were on a medicated cycle. You're on the younger side. So that would probably be the route that would happen here in the US as well for anybody who's listening, because most people who are listening are IVF patients. So we're used to every week getting a scan and, from implantation or whatever it may be to 8 to 12 weeks. So I just wanted to make that clear that there's several different situations that may be, different for the fact that one, you're in a different country, two, your age could have been a factor, et cetera. But Okay, so week 10, you go back to the doctor, and what happened, or the midwife, and it's still triplets going strong with 3 heartbeats. Okay.
Yeah, so week 10, everything is good. The consultant tells us that the odds of having a successful triplet pregnancy, they're never going to be 100%. The likelihood of them making it to full term is very, very slim. Most triplets are delivered before 34 weeks. We were encouraged to reduce the pregnancy, which I was never going to do.
And for anybody listening, that basically means that you choose to, because triplets is such a high risk, you choose to terminate one of the babies so that your likelihood of having a live birth for 2 is greater than 3. So I understand that's a difficult decision that I think most people these days choose not to do.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's which one of your babies do you choose? And it's a heartbreaking decision to make. And actually, after this point, we went away and did a lot of research and found out that there statistically isn't much difference in reducing to twins. The statistical difference reducing to a singleton, but not to twins. So it wouldn't have made that significant of a difference for us. So I'm glad that we made that decision. In my head, it was very much they all make it or they don't make it, and we will take that chance to bring all 3 of them here if we can. So yeah, after that point, everything kind of went smoothly up until I got to about 15 weeks. And then at 15 weeks, we had a private gender scan, and we were told that we were having 2 girls and a boy, which we later found out was wrong. And we had a gender reveal and everything, and then we found out later on that it was actually 2 boys and a girl, which was interesting. I know, but at 15 weeks, I kind of felt like something wasn't quite right. I felt like I was potentially leaking fluid, which obviously is a scary concept, and it gets a bit TMI, but I went to my doctor and said, and he's like, no, this is normal. You're carrying 3 babies. Everything's going to kind of be a little bit more than what it would normally be. But something in my gut just told me that that wasn't right. And we got to around, I want to say around 20 weeks. And I went for another check. I took my mom with me, and we both were saying, like, look, I don't think something's right here. And again, we were kind of very much gaslit into thinking that it was normal, and being a first time mum and thinking that my medical team would know what was best, I kind of let it go.
So at 20 weeks, you went for a scan and they said everything was normal, or what do you, okay. So
Yeah.
meaning that they did heartbeat checks, and because did they do an anatomy scan at 20 weeks at that point, or 18 to 20 weeks, and everything was fine, or what?
Yes and no. This is the issue that we have, and I don't know if this was just the consultant that I had or if this is the general consensus. It took quite a long time to do the anatomy scan, and his words verbatim were, "There's lots of bits of baby everywhere." So he basically said they did what they could and they looked healthy, and because I was young, they assumed they'd be healthy. So again, fortunately they were, but that's not. I don't think that's the right way that it should have gone. But after that point, I knew something was wrong, and at this point, I started getting signs of an infection as well. So I knew something was wrong. I tried to trust my gut. I got in touch with my midwives and said, "Hey, I think something's not okay here." And it was just kind of left that, no, you're fine.
What were your symptoms of why did you think you had an infection?
So I was getting bits of pain. Again, it's a little bit too much information, but I was getting lots of green discharge, so I knew that something was going on and something wasn't right. I know as women we get all these kind of things. You get thrush, you get BB, there's loads of stuff, especially when you're pregnant. You have so many things going on, but when it starts to turn a colour, it starts to get a bit concerning. And I also felt like I was losing bits of my mucus plug as well that was also green. So at that point, I was like, okay, this isn't right. My midwives didn't get back to me after I got in contact with them and said I thought something was wrong. They left me for like a week. And it got to, I was 23 weeks, and my mom came over and she was like, "You don't look well." And I had slept all day the day before because I wasn't feeling great, but just thought, oh yeah, it's one of those things. I'm just tired. I'm pregnant. At this point, I looked like I was carrying a full term singleton pregnancy at 23 weeks. I was huge. So everything was getting really heavy. So I went in just to get checked and thought, I'll be fine, I'll get checked, I'll be home in a few hours. And I went in, they checked me over, and they pretty much admitted me straight away. And I could see that something was quite clearly quite wrong. And that's when they told me they thought that I had sepsis. And they, yeah, it escalated very quickly. They started treating me for sepsis straight away. We later found out that I had chorioamnionitis, which is a pretty nasty maternal infection. But if it's caught early enough, it can be treated with antibiotics, and it's no big deal. But if it's left too late and it breaches the uterus and enters the chorion, it's almost always fatal.
So what is that? I've never heard that before.
It's a rising infection, so it comes from having thrush or bacterial vaginosis or even a UTI. And once that sort of infection gets through the birth canal, through the cervix, and then into the uterus, that's when it really starts causing problems. And then once it breaches the placenta and the chorion and it gets to the baby, it becomes a real problem. And again, if this had been treated earlier, I can't say for certain that things would have gone differently, but there is lots of research to suggest that if it's treated early on, it can be effectively treated. But unfortunately, that was not the case for us, and it caused preterm premature rupture of membranes for me with my first son. So it was the textbook perfect triplet pregnancy because they were trichorionic, triamniotics. They all had their own placentas and all had their own amniotic sacs. It's essentially 3 separate pregnancies at one time. So the waters that had broken was my first son Noah's, because they were sitting like a little triangle. I had Noah across the bottom, then I had Eden on one side, my little girl, and Hudson on the other side with a little boy. And it was Noah's waters on the bottom that had broken. And everything moved really, really quickly. And within the space of 24 hours, I was told that he had already passed and he was going to be stillborn. I gave birth to him and he was born alive. He wasn't stillborn.
Just got
But
goosebumps.
because we were told he was going to be born still, they didn't have any teams or any equipment available for resus. So because he was born alive, there was essentially no help for us in that
Oh my
sense. So
God.
we had to essentially just opt for palliative care with him. And he was born at 23 weeks and 2 days. So the hospital we were at, they could take infants in the NICU from 22 weeks. So he essentially was past that stage, but we had a lot of issues. A lot of how do I put it? A lot of negligence happened across the course of my
Sounds
obstetric
like
care and
a,
the care
oh
team
my
while we were there.
goodness.
So yeah, we unfortunately had to opt for palliative care with Noah, and he was breathing on his own, and then kind of just had to kind of wait it out. So we did everything that we could with him. So we sang to him, read to him, dressed him, all the things that you would want to do as a parent. And he passed after 4 hours, and we had those 4 hours with him. We had my parents with us, and just made it as special as we could. And it was really hard because I had a whole team telling me, you need to hold it together because you're still pregnant with two. So I kind of had to put a pin in my grief to kind of move forward.
Which
And
seems,
after I'd given birth to Noah,
literally, that seems impossible. How
oh,
could you possibly
100%.
do that?
You can't. At that point, I was just very numb, and I kind of switched. I think at that point, my brain just fully shut down. I This was my first experience of birth, my first experience of motherhood, and I knew that it was so terribly wrong, but there was nothing that I could do to change it. So yeah, I think I just shut down at that point, and fortunately, my labour stopped. They couldn't remove his placenta because it was attached to the other two. So they stitched up the umbilical cord and pushed it back inside my cervix and just kind of said, "We've never done this before, but we're going to hope this works." And unfortunately, it didn't. I went back into labour 2 days later. So I had no on the Wednesday. The Friday, I went back into labour at 10 or 11 p.m. And then by 6 a.m. on the Sunday morning, I was still labouring. And at that point, I was fully dilated, and they were like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" So we ended up having to have a C-section because the meds that I'd had, because I had sepsis. I had to go into general, so I couldn't see them being born. But Eden and Hudson were born healthy at 23 and 6. They were £1 one and £1 two, and Noah was £1 one as well. And they were whisked off to the NICU. And yeah, that just kind of then preceded a 2-week journey of one being good and one being bad, and then switching every day to one doing better and one doing worse. All this time, I just became Daisy the dairy cow because the only thing I could do was pump for them. So I stayed in the NICU and just pumped, even though they couldn't eat, because it was the only thing that I could control at that point. And I think I was still so switched off and so just wanted them to survive. But unfortunately, we lost our second son Hudson after 8 days. He had a very severe brain bleed that couldn't be stopped, and we were told the only way to keep him here was to essentially drill into his skull on a daily basis to drain the fluid, which nobody wants to do that to their child. Nobody
Of
wants to
course.
cause unknown amounts of brain damage to their child on a daily basis. He also had a very bad infection that he caught from me. They thought that he may have had meningitis too, so it was kind of like at that point they'd done everything they could do, and if he did make it, he wouldn't have had any quality of life. So we made the decision to take him off life support at 8 days old. And bless him, he was so sick that we only had around 20 minutes with him before he passed, which was horrendous to have to go through that process again. And then we kind of poured everything into our daughter because she was the last one that we had left, and we were just so hopeful that we might get to take one of them home and actually have a shot at being parents. So we gave her our all, and we again tried to put aside our grief as best as we could just to kind of be there for her. And she was doing great. She was so strong. She was doing really well. And then it got to about day 10 or 11. Sorry, no, day 11 or 12, and we were told that she had necrotizing enterocolitis, which is a condition where the gut bacteria isn't formed in newborn babies, especially not in neonates. So the slightest bit of bacteria that gets in basically wreaks havoc. And with them having to have so many tests and so many blood transfusions, it was very likely there was going to be bacteria introduced at some point. So unfortunately, that's what happened, and it essentially destroyed everything from her stomach to her rectum. So we couldn't have a colostomy or anything fitted. There was nothing that we could save. And we were told that that was the case, that she wouldn't be able to live without a functioning gut. And even if there was anything to save, she was so weak at that point that the likelihood of transferring her to a hospital that they could perform that surgery, the likelihood that she would die on the journey. So again, we were told that we could keep her here for as long as we needed to, but that she essentially would not be going home. So at that point, we didn't know how much pain she was in, and I always say selfishly, but it's not selfish as a lost parent, because we wanted this ordeal for us and for them to just be over, for them to be at peace if that's what needed to happen. So we decided to take her off life support that day. And she really didn't want to go, bless her. We had seven or so hours with her. She was breathing on her own for all that time, and she'd been on like a full ventilator for the entire 2 weeks. It was the first time she breathed on her own.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we did everything that we wanted to with her as parents. We read to her, sang to her, had moments on our own with her, dressed her, all the things that we could kind of control in that time. And then it was kind of it for our journey. And trying to explain to people the feeling of handing your child to a nurse, knowing that you're not going to see them again, is so unbelievably complex. And that was kind of, we'd done it for the third time at that point, and
The third time in a short period of days, that's like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, over the space of 2 weeks, we'd lost literally one after the other. And yeah, we left the hospital with three memory boxes instead of three babies. And that's kind of the moment where I think it hit me then when I got in the car, and my world just kind of fell apart, because I was like, what do I do now? My entire identity has been taken. We'd already been on a journey to get them here, which I appreciate is so much shorter than so many people's journeys. But it felt like we'd spent 2.5, nearly 3 years at that point to still be brokenhearted and empty armed. So yeah, that was kind of our journey in a nutshell, and that's very much what led me to do what I do today, because there just wasn't a lot of help out there. And I very much felt a calling, and I think it I always am careful how I say this, because I don't want it to come across the wrong way, because I would give anything to have my children here. I'd live in a cardboard box if you meant I could have them back. But I do genuinely think that everything that we've been through has led for this to be my sole purpose, to help other people that go through infertility and loss and the journey, because it's so hard, and it's something that only other parents that have been through this understand.
And that
Yeah.
alone means the world to somebody who's gone through it, right? That is all I wanted when I didn't have your experience, but when I had my first loss, I tell this story all the time. I sought out a therapist who specified in miscarriage loss, and I didn't know. Did she ever go through this? Did she have kids after this? Did she I didn't know anything. And so I walked out of there even more devastated, because I was just looking for hope for somebody to tell me that you would get through this and it would be okay eventually, or you would go on to have another baby, or something, some sort of hope to know that she really understood what I had gone through. And even though she was classified as that was her specialty, I didn't feel that connection of her to say, I get it. I've been where you are. And to me, and for my clients that I send people to, that means everything, right? To just say, I hear you, I see you, I know what that likes. Our situation may not be identical, but I know what that likes is like to go home without a baby. Or I know what that's like to, I mean, I had a NICU baby twice, one for a longer period of time. And again, not the same, because was able to come home with them. But even that, I remember in that time, nobody's preparing you for this. Nobody's explaining you how it is to go home every night when you have to take care of other children and your baby's there and you don't know. It is so complex, and it is such a needed area. And I think I am so happy for you in that way, to know that you're able to share your story, because I know it's not easy. I'm emotional just hearing your story. So being able to relive that, and those memories, of course, are so amazing, and bless them for being able to be spoken about, right? And for your children, but to know that somebody who's listening, who has a friend or a sister or somebody who's going through it, to know there are other people out there that can help you, that have been through it, even if it's just one conversation to say, I know what it's like to have the memory box, or to have the ashes of your baby that you were planning for, or that some people know that they are walking towards an, a not good situation, but they choose to carry for term. And that's also hard, knowing that your baby is going to be born alive, but they're not going to live. So there's so many complexities that happen all the time. And I think you start to recognize that I don't want to say we take pregnancy and birth for granted, but a lot of us do. And I think because my journey ahead of time wasn't so easy, I already knew it was already stressful for me. But I think so many people don't know that. They don't know that it's potential. It's a really scary thing. There's a reason that people would die during childbirth so often. And now, thank goodness, we have technologies that they don't. But yeah, so I am just so grateful for you sharing your story. And so let's move on to where you're at now. So you went on to help other people. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, I have gone on to have another child. I have a little boy who's 2. His name is Sunny. Thank you. My pregnancy with him was really, medically it was fine, but mentally it was really complex.
How could it not be? And that's the
Yeah,
other thing I
yeah,
think for people. You cannot be expected to go through some sort of trauma prior and think that your pregnancy the next time is going to be normal. It's just it mentally, it's impossible. You're always going to be concerned. You're always going to be waiting for the shoe to drop. You're always going to have that anxiety and stress. So having somebody to help you through that, I think, is necessary, in my opinion. I think you have to have somebody help you.
I agree. I agree, and that's something that I didn't do till later on in my pregnancy, and I really wish I'd done earlier because I thought, oh, I'm a therapist, I'll be fine, I can do it myself. Very much realised the hard way that I needed somebody else because pregnancy after loss, I say to all of my clients, you're unfortunately robbed of that innocence that you have in your first pregnancy. So you're heartbreakingly aware of everything that can go wrong. And I was really lucky that we had moved hospitals and we were under a different doctor, and the doctor that I had this time round was incredible. And I've told her if I'm fortunate to have any more children, I will follow that woman to the ends of the earth because she is everything a doctor should be.
Amazing.
I mean,
And
she
what a
even came
difference
in
that
on her day
makes,
off.
right? To feel that connection and support with somebody is huge.
100%. She let me advocate myself for myself through every step. She did loads of extra checks, extra scans, everything I wanted, she did. She even came in on her day off to deliver him for me because I had a scheduled section. And my birth was everything that I hoped it would be. And yeah, I mean, parenting after loss, as I'm sure you know, is really complex in itself as well. And that caused a lot of health anxiety and worrying about my living child being taken from me, and that was a journey in itself. And I'm very grateful that he's 2.5, he's thriving, I'm thriving now, but it's taken a long time to get here. And I think that's the really important thing about getting help, but most importantly, getting the right help, because the right help with the right person makes such a difference to your journey going forward. You're never gonna be able to take the grief away, and you don't want to because grief is love for your child, and it's never going to fix things or make you the person that you were before because you're forever changed. But all it can do is just make that journey easier to walk, easier to understand, and enable you to lead with joy and hope rather than fear and overwhelm.
But that takes practice. I just want to say that too. It takes practice. And that's why having somebody like yourself to teach you how to do that. You really do need to be taught how to do that, because that's how we learn behaviors of practicing. How does that look like? How am I able to have joy in these situations when I have this memory and this heartache and this hole in my heart for these babies? So give yourself the grace, seek the person that you feel connected to that has been through it to help you through it, because it is possible. And we don't want to pass that on to our children, right? As far as we don't want our living little ones to feel the angst, so to speak, that we have because of our own experiences, right? It doesn't have anything to do with them. And unfortunately, I see that in myself a lot of times. I feel like I'm hypersensitive to them, what they're doing or whatever, because I don't want anything to happen to them. And I know that's normal as a parent, but I feel like for me, it is hyper because of what I went through in order to get them here. And that is a very deep subconscious level of something that I've had to work through to understand in myself of like, gosh, why am I so, on edge all the time with them? That's part of it. That is because of that. And so working through that in whatever way you see that, and also recognizing that the behaviors of what you want to work on and what could potentially be related, and finding somebody who can help you through that. So again, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I am glad that it led you to this beautiful place now to be able to serve people and know that you have this mission in life. That's kind of how I feel. And it's such a great feeling, right? To know like there's this beauty and pain that has this dichotomy around itself, that eventually works out to help others. And it's such a gift to be able to help other people that are going through it. So thank you for sharing that. How can people find you and work with you and learn from you?
Yeah, everything I do is through Instagram, so you can find me at Elle.hypnotherapy. The program I run, the Lost Mama Method, is all available through there. You can just drop me a DM and we can have a conversation and go from there. Everything I do is very bespoke, it's very heart-led, so I like to have conversations with people around anything before we go on a journey together. But yeah, I've supported women at every step of the journey, from the IVF process all the way through to women who've unfortunately lost their children to SIDS and everything in between. So nothing is off the table. I always like to say I'm TFMR friendly because I know that is a big conversation in this community. And yeah, everybody is welcome. Everybody's grief has a place and everybody deserves healing.
Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your story and honoring your little angel babies that are there watching us now, I'm sure. And super grateful. So have a beautiful rest of your day. And until we meet again.
Thank you. And you, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.